Greetings. Today we hope to share our exploration of the influence of the placement of bathroom mirrors on the water consumption by bathroom users. Our study begins to show that the elimination of a public mirror will reduce the consumption of water by those users. First, a quick overview of our presentation. We would like to share our communication triangle, how our study progressed, what hypotheses we are attempting to understand, how we conducted our experiment, and our results. We began initially with the intention of examining feedback methods used for displaying water usage in the interest of more sustainable practices. We believe that people had a desire to minimize their consumption, but they don't have a good understanding of when they're wasting water. Could we produce a display that would provide real-time feedback with the user in a way that helps them contextualize their water footprint while they're using it? This is the type of behavior we see in a different manner with water filling stations in public spaces currently that give positive encouragement for people using refillable bottles instead of single-use plastics. Why did we shift? Between the literature review we did, which illuminated the space to be reasonably saturated, and the feedback from some of our early pilot testing, we hadn't quite identified a novel indicator to influence behavior. But through some anecdotal discoveries, we realized that there were other influences as to why people spend so much time in front of the faucet, and decided to explore the influence the mirror has on the length of their hand-washing sessions. Upon preliminary research in this area, we found information about mirror usage that was encouraging that people spent a significant amount of time in front of the mirror every day. We believe that this increased incentive to keep you in front of the sink while conducting tasks could lead to increased overall water usage. We also saw trends within the marketplace that were connecting water usage displays to mirrors that further inspired the need to understand the influence on one another. Where we initially started with how could we actively influence faucet users to minimize their water consumption, we slowly identified other opportunities within the space for variables that were influencing how people use the sink. The question of how much influence does the mirror have of the amount of time that people run the water emerged as our focus of the study. From here, our hypothesis emerged. The presence of the mirror encourages longer water usage sessions. Therefore, the elimination of the mirror in the bathroom will reduce the amount of water used per session. Our second hypothesis then came in the other direction. We started to question whether we could exaggerate the value of the mirror and drive the use of the water up, proving a tie between the practice of using the mirror and the amount of water that they used. Our other hypothesis was the accentuation of the mirrors in gender-neutral bathrooms through the use of vanity lights will increase the amount of water used per session. The first hypothesis became our primary focus for this experiment, with the intention of adding additional time to the study to our test in order to assess the second hypothesis. Unfortunately, because of the situation that was out of our control, we were only able to test the first hypothesis before campus was closed, and the number of participants using the bathrooms dropped dramatically. So how did we conduct the experiment? We identified a pair of gender-neutral bathrooms on campus that were next to each other, located on the fringe of a courtyard that gathers a wide range of students, staff, and faculty from both the undergraduate and graduate departments on campus. We installed Hall effect sensor flow meters on both the hot and cold water faucets in both the bathrooms and connected them to two Raspberry Pis that were tracking and logging all the water sessions, storing them locally. We ultimately conducted a baseline observation for roughly 24 hours, then covered each of the meters with a paper sign that read "Repair in Progress," and continued to record the water session data. Our intention was to repeat this with a set of vanity lights that we purchased, but this was never able to be completed. We were then able to log onto these computers via SSH to remove the data files for processing. In our analysis, we first calibrated the flow sensors by taking a series of volume measurements and then reading how many revolutions are recorded. We then summed and averaged the water sessions over these test periods to understand how the use of water was changed as a result of the removal of the mirrored surfaces. If we look at the graphs of the total water flow by the time of day, we can note that our water usage when there was no treatment, shown in blue and yellow, or the bathrooms are in their baseline state, tend to have higher water usage than during the treatment periods with no mirrors. We see similar effects when looking at our average water flow as well, as our no treatment conditions shown in blue and yellow appear to produce higher water usage than our no mirror conditions. If we compare the average water usage from both the sinks, we see a 48% reduction in the amount of water used per session for sink 1, as well as a 53% increase in the water usage for sink 2. This aligns well with our hypothesis that the removal of the mirror surface will produce a reduction in the water usage and has a pretty substantial influence, as we can see with these numbers. Though we are starting to see some encouraging outcomes that agree with our hypothesis, we recognize the shortcomings of this experiment and realize there's much opportunity for improvement in the future. The largest caveat to this work is the size of the sampling that we conducted, that was mitigated in part by the changes around campus regarding coronavirus. I think we could have used a 10x scale in the size of the sampling to help filter out short-term fluctuations in the patterns of the facility and the types of people that use the bathroom on a particular day or time. Interestingly, we would have expected that the spreading virus would have actually increased the time that people were spending washing their hands, but our average still decreased over time, which ultimately helps affirm the strength of our hypothesis through this data. Thank you very much for your time, and please let us know if you have any follow-up questions.